I trusted my best friend with my biggest career opportunity yet. Watching him take credit for my work during that board meeting felt like a knife to the heart. For 12 years, Jackson and I had climbed the corporate ladder together, sharing dreams over countless late nights. Now I stared at his back as he walked away with my promotion, my project, and my dignity. Little did I know this betrayal would force me to discover my true strength. Hey everyone. I would love to know where you are watching this from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. The morning had started like any other Tuesday. I remember fixing my tie in the hallway mirror, kissing my wife Sarah goodbye, and promising to bring home something special to celebrate what I was certain would be my promotion day. For 3 years, I had been developing an innovative logistics system that could reduce our company's shipping costs by 30%. It was revolutionary enough that the CEO himself had requested the presentation be made to the entire board. "Today is your day," Sarah had said, straightening my lapel. Her eyes reflected the pride I felt. "After all those late nights and missed weekends, you are finally getting the recognition you deserve." I drove to work with the windows down, feeling the April breeze against my face. My presentation was meticulously prepared, backed by months of testing and data. This was not just about the promotion to Vice President of Operations. This was about cementing my legacy at Meridian Shipping, the company that had hired me fresh out of college 15 years ago. Jackson had been there almost as long, joining the company 11 months after me. We had been inseparable since our days sharing a cramped office in the accounting department. We had stood as best men at each other's weddings, celebrated births of our children together, and supported each other through every career milestone. There was no one I trusted more. When I arrived at the office, Jackson was waiting by my desk with 2 cups of coffee. "The special blend from that place you like," he said, handing me a steaming cup. "Figured you could use the extra boost today." "Thanks, man. I am a little nervous," I admitted, setting down my briefcase. Jackson clapped me on the shoulder. "Do not be. I reviewed your presentation yesterday, remember. It is bulletproof." It was true. Jackson had stayed late with me the previous evening, going over every slide, every data point, every potential question the board might ask. He had always been the more polished presenter between us, and his advice had been invaluable. "Hey, can I see the final version?" he asked. I had a thought about that transition between the cost analysis and implementation timeline. I handed him my flash drive without hesitation. "Make whatever changes you think would help. I trust your judgment." "I will have this back to you before the meeting," he promised. "Just going to refine a couple of things." I spent the morning responding to emails and trying to control my nerves. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Margaret, the CEO's assistant. Meeting moved up to 12 p.m. Come directly to the boardroom. Frowning, I texted Jackson. Meeting moved up. Do you have my presentation? 3 dots appeared then. Yes. Already in the boardroom, helping set up the projector. Come up when you are ready. Relieved, I gathered my notes and made my way to the executive floor. The security guard nodded as I entered the hallway to the boardroom. Through the glass walls, I could see the board members taking their seats, the CEO, Richard Wagner, at the head of the table. Jackson was standing at the laptop connected to the projector, clicking through what looked like my presentation. When I entered, Richard looked up with a smile. "Ah, there he is. Take a seat, Lewis. Jackson was just telling us he is ready to begin." Confusion washed over me. "Begin your logistics presentation," Richard said. "Jackson mentioned you were running late, so he offered to start without you." Before I could respond, Jackson launched into the introduction. My introduction, word for word using the exact phrasing I had practiced in front of my bathroom mirror 50 times. "As you all know, our current logistics system has served us well, but in today's competitive market, we need to innovate or fall behind," Jackson said smoothly, his confidence unmistakable. I sat frozen in my chair as he clicked to the next slide. My data, my charts, my ideas, flowing from his lips as naturally as if they had been his all along. Each slide was exactly as I had created it. Except for one critical change, every instance of my name had been replaced with his. The board members nodded appreciatively, clearly impressed. Richard especially seemed captivated, leaning forward and asking questions that Jackson answered, using information I had shared with him over months of collaboration. "This is remarkable work," Jackson Richards said, nodding approvingly. The projected savings alone would justify the implementation costs within 6 months. Thank you, sir. I have been developing this system for 3 years, Jackson replied, making direct eye contact with me as he emphasized the word I. My throat constricted. The room felt suddenly airless, the walls closing in. I wanted to stand up, to shout, to expose the theft happening right before my eyes, but shock had rendered me mute. This was Jackson, my friend, my confidant, the godfather to my daughter. How could he do this? As the presentation concluded, Richard stood and shook Jackson's hand. This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need in our executive team. I believe we have found our new vice president of operations. The board members applauded as Jackson beamed. Only then did he acknowledge me. Lewis has been instrumental in helping me gather some of this data, he said magnanimously. He is quite the dedicated team player. The condescension in his voice broke my paralysis. I stood abruptly, my chair screeching against the floor. Richard, I need to speak with you privately. I managed my voice, strained. Richard checked his watch. Can it wait, Lewis? We have another meeting scheduled. Perhaps tomorrow. Before I could respond, Jackson smoothly interjected. Lewis is probably eager to discuss his role in the implementation. Always thinking ahead, right, buddy? The familiar term buddy from his lips now felt like acid. I stared at him, searching for any sign of the friend I thought I knew, but his eyes were cold, calculating. In that moment I realized this betrayal had not been impulsive. It had been meticulously planned. As the board members filed out congratulating Jackson as they passed, he approached me, voice low. You should see your face right now, he said. Did you honestly think they would give the vice presidency to someone like you? You are a worker bee, Lewis. I am a leader. We have been friends for 12 years. I whispered, disbelief still clouding my thoughts. Jackson straightened his tie. And in those 12 years I have watched you get recognized for ideas we both contributed to. This evens the score. That is not true, I protested, memories flooding back of all the times I had given him credit, included his name in reports, insisted he join presentations. It is my truth, he replied coldly. Besides, it is done now. If you try to fight this, it will be your word against mine. And who do you think they will believe, the disgruntled employee or the brilliant new vice president? With that, he walked out, leaving me alone in the boardroom, surrounded by the wreckage of my career ambitions and what I had thought was an unbreakable friendship. The drive home that evening remains a blur in my memory. I recall sitting in my car in the parking garage for nearly an hour trying to process what had happened. The betrayal felt physical, like an actual wound in my chest. How would I tell Sarah? What would this mean for our plans, our future? The promotion had included a substantial raise that we had already mentally allocated toward our daughter Emma's college fund, and possibly a down payment on a broader vacation home. When I finally arrived home, Sarah was waiting with a bottle of champagne, and Emma had made a congratulations dad sign with glitter and markers. The sight of their excited faces only deepened my despair. What is wrong? Sarah asked immediately, her smile fading as she saw my expression. Did something happen with the presentation? I sank into the couch, loosening my tie. Emma, sensing the mood shift, quietly took her sign and disappeared upstairs. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close before speaking. Jackson stole my presentation, I said flatly. He presented my work as his own and got the promotion. Sarah sat beside me, champagne forgotten. What? That cannot be right. Jackson would never. He did. The finality in my voice stopped her protests. He deliberately took my flash drive yesterday, replaced my name with his on every slide, and told everyone he developed the entire logistics system himself. But that is insane. Everyone knows you have been working on this project for years. Can you not just tell Richard the truth? I laughed bitterly. It would be my word against his. And right now he is the golden boy who just promised to save the company millions. Who do you think they will believe? The next morning I dragged myself to work, dreading the inevitable whispers and congratulations directed at Jackson. I had barely settled at my desk when my phone rang. It was Margaret, the CEO's assistant. Lewis, Richard would like to see you in his office immediately. My heart raced. Perhaps someone had realized what happened. Maybe there was still a chance for justice. I straightened my tie and hurried to the executive floor. Richard was sitting behind his massive desk, Jackson standing beside him. My hope deflated instantly. "Lewis, take a seat," Richard said, his tone unreadable. "Jackson has been sharing more details about the logistics project with me this morning." Jackson had the decency to avoid eye contact. "He tells me you were instrumental in collecting data and running some of the preliminary tests," Richard continued. "That kind of teamwork is exactly what we value at Meridian." "Teamwork," I repeated hollowly. "Yes," Richard nodded. "And in the spirit of that teamwork, Jackson has requested that you head the implementation team for the new system. Given your familiarity with the data, he feels you are the perfect person to bring this vision to life." The audacity was breathtaking. Not only had Jackson stolen my work, but now he was positioning himself to take credit for its successful implementation as well. "With all due respect, sir," I said carefully, "that project was entirely my creation. From conceptualization to design to testing, every aspect was my work." Richard's expression hardened. "That is a serious accusation, Lewis." "It is the truth," I insisted. "I can prove it. I have earlier versions of the presentation on my home computer emails discussing the development. I have those too," Jackson interrupted smoothly. "Lewis and I collaborated extensively. I valued his input greatly, which is why I am surprised by this reaction. Perhaps he misunderstood the nature of our collaboration." "I did not misunderstand anything I said," my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "You stole my work. You stole my promotion. You betrayed our friendship." Richard held up his hand. "That is enough. Lewis, I understand you are disappointed about the promotion, but these accusations are unprofessional. Jackson has generously offered you a key role in this project. I suggest you take some time to consider whether you want it, or if perhaps you might be happier elsewhere." The threat was clear. "Accept the situation or find another job." I stood, my hands shaking with suppressed rage. "I will need some time to think about it." "Of course," Richard nodded. "Take the rest of the day. Clear your head. We will expect your decision tomorrow." As I turned to leave, Jackson finally met my gaze, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. In that moment, something broke inside me, the last remnants of our friendship, but also the chains of my own complacency. The next few days were the darkest I can remember. I called in sick, unable to face the office, unable to face Jackson. Sarah suggested legal action, but without concrete proof that the work was exclusively mine, any lawsuit would be costly and ultimately futile. I considered reaching out to other board members, but Jackson had been cultivating those relationships for years, positioning himself as a rising star, while I had focused solely on my work. On the third day of my self-imposed exile, I received an email that would change everything. It was from Thomas, a junior developer, who had helped me test the logistics software, Mr. Matthews. "I heard about what happened with the presentation. It does not seem right to me. I have the original test logs you sent me with your notes and timestamps. They clearly show you as the developer. I am not sure if this helps, but I thought you should have them." Attached were dozens of files, meticulously documented, all bearing my digital fingerprints. It was not definitive proof, but it was a start. More importantly, it was validation that I was not crazy, that the truth was still the truth, even if Jackson had tried to rewrite it. That night, as Sarah and Emma slept, I sat in our home office and made a decision. I could continue fighting a battle that might never yield justice, or I could channel my energy into something new. The logistics system had not been my only idea, just the one I had chosen to develop first. There were other innovations tucked away in my notebooks, other solutions waiting to be built. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I returned to Meridian and walked directly to Richard's office. "I will not be taking the implementation role," I said without preamble. "And I will not be staying at Meridian. I am submitting my resignation effective immediately." Richard seemed genuinely surprised. "Lewis, this is hasty. You have been with us for 15 years. At least take some time to consider." "I have considered," I interrupted. "My decision is final." As I turned to leave, I paused. "One more thing. I know what happened with that presentation, and someday you will too." Freedom has a particular sweetness when it follows captivity. Walking out of Meridian's offices that day, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a weight I had not even realized I had been carrying. For 15 years, I had defined myself by my role there, measuring my worth by promotions and recognition. Jackson's betrayal had shattered that framework, forcing me to reconsider everything. The next few months were challenging. Our savings cushioned the financial blow, but the real struggle was rebuilding my professional identity. What was I without Meridian? Who was Louis Matthews outside the corporate structure that had defined him for so long? The answer came from an unexpected source. Thomas, the junior developer, who had sent me the test logs, reached out again. "Mr. Matthews, I left Meridian, too. The company culture became toxic after what happened with you and Jackson. A few of us have been talking. We admired your work, the real innovations you brought to the table. We were wondering if you had any plans for what comes next." That email sparked a series of meetings, first at coffee shops, then in my garage, which we converted into a makeshift office. Thomas brought along Aisha, a brilliant logistics specialist, who had also left Meridian, and Marcus, a financing expert, who believed in what we were discussing. "The logistics system you designed was just the beginning," Aisha said during one of our sessions. "With some modifications, it could be applied across multiple industries, not just shipping. And there is significant venture capital available for logistics startups right now," Marcus added. "Especially those with proven leadership and innovative technology." The idea of starting my own company had never seriously occurred to me before. I had always seen myself as a company man working within established systems. But now, with these talented individuals looking to me for leadership, I began to see new possibilities. Sarah fully supported the venture, even offering to return to full-time work to help us weather the startup phase. "I have never seen you this passionate," she told me. "Not even when you were working on the system at Meridian. This is what you were meant to do." 6 months after leaving Meridian, we officially launched Matthews Logistics Solutions. Our business model was simple but powerful. We would provide customized logistics optimization for medium-sized businesses that could not afford enterprise-level solutions, but needed more efficiency than generic systems could provide. The work was exhilarating and exhausting. There were nights I did not sleep at all, weeks where I barely saw Emma except to kiss her goodnight. But unlike my time at Meridian, every hour invested was building something that was truly mine, something that could not be stolen or misattributed. Thomas, Aisha, and Marcus became more than colleagues. They were partners in the truest sense, each bringing unique strengths to our fledgling company. We celebrated our first client with cheap champagne in plastic cups. We worked through our first major technical crisis together, none of us leaving until the solution was found at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. A year into our venture, we had grown to a team of 15 with offices in a converted warehouse downtown. Our client list was impressive, our reputation for innovative solutions spreading through industry networks. And then came the email that brought everything full circle. "Dear Mr. Matthews, I am writing on behalf of Meridian Shipping. Our company has been experiencing significant issues with our logistics system implementation. Your name has been recommended to us as someone who might be able to consult on this matter. Would you be available for a meeting next week? Regards, Margaret Chen, Executive Assistant to the CEO." I read the email twice, then called Sarah. "Meridian wants to hire us," I said, still processing the implications. "After everything they did to you, tell them to go to hell," she replied instantly. I laughed. That was my first instinct too. But I am curious. The message mentions problems with their logistics implementation. Jackson's implementation. So he could not deliver on your ideas after all. Sarah said, with satisfaction. Poetic justice. I agreed to the meeting more out of curiosity than any real intention to work with Meridian again. When I arrived at my former workplace, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The confident bustle had been replaced with a tense efficiency. Margaret greeted me with genuine warmth. "It is good to see you, Louis. A lot has changed since you left." She led me not to a conference room but directly to Richard's office. The CEO looked older, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. "Louis, thank you for coming," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Please have a seat." As I settled into the chair across from him, I noticed a familiar binder on his desk. My original project documentation for the logistics system, the copy I had left behind. "I owe you an apology," Richard said bluntly. "After you left, the implementation of the logistics system was a disaster. Nothing worked as promised. Jackson blamed the development team, then the data, then the infrastructure. Eventually, we had to bring in outside consultants to determine what went wrong." He tapped the binder. "They found this in the project archives and reconstructed the original design specifications. The system Jackson tried to implement had been fundamentally altered from your original design. Critical components were missing or changed, presumably because he did not fully understand how they worked." I maintained a neutral expression, though inwardly I felt a complex mix of vindication and lingering anger. "Where is Jackson now?" I asked. Richard's expression hardened. "No longer with the company. Once it became clear what had happened, his position became untenable. Several other employees came forward with similar experiences of him taking credit for their work." "Including Thomas," I said. Richard nodded. "Yes, his departure was a significant loss to Meridian. As was yours." He leaned forward. "Lewis, I know we cannot undo what happened, but your system, your original system, could still save this company millions. We would like to contract Matthews Logistics to implement it properly, at a premium rate, of course. The offer was substantial enough to fund our expansion plans for the next 2 years. From a purely business perspective, it made perfect sense to accept. But business was no longer the only factor in my decisions. I will need to discuss it with my partners," I said. "This would be their project as much as mine." When I presented the opportunity to Thomas, Aisha, and Marcus, their responses surprised me. "We should do it," Thomas said firmly. "Not for Meridian, but to prove that your system works, to complete what you started. Plus, having Meridian as a reference client would open doors across the industry," Aisha added practically. Marcus crunched the numbers. "The contract would stabilize our cash flow through the next expansion phase. From a financial standpoint, it is a no-brainer." So, we took the contract. Over the next 6 months, we implemented my original logistics system at Meridian. I insisted that Thomas lead the project on site, a small but significant gesture of setting things right. The system performed exactly as I had originally projected, saving Meridian 35% on shipping costs in the first quarter alone. On the day of the final handover, Richard invited me to his office again. "You could have refused our business," he said. "Most people in your position would have. Why did you take the contract?" I considered the question carefully. At first I thought it was about proving I was right all along, but it was never really about that. It was about finishing what I started on my own terms, and showing that success does not have to come at someone else's expense. Richard nodded slowly. "Jackson taught us the cost of that kind of success. Your approach has been educational." As I left Meridian that day, this time with no intention of returning, I reflected on the journey of the past 2 years. Jackson's betrayal, which had seemed like the end of my career, had actually been the beginning of something far more valuable, a business built on integrity, partnerships based on mutual respect and success, that came from creation rather than appropriation. It has been 5 years since I walked out of Meridian for the last time. Matthews Logistics Solutions now employs over 100 people across 3 offices. We recently secured a contract with one of the largest retail chains in the country, implementing our latest system that builds upon the original concepts I developed all those years ago. I still think about Jackson occasionally. I heard he found another executive position at a smaller company, though he never achieved the prominence he sought. Sometimes I wonder if he ever reflects on the choices he made, if he ever considers reaching out to make amends. But that chapter of my life is closed now, and I have no desire to reopen it. The betrayal that once defined my professional identity has faded to a footnote in my larger story. It taught me painful but necessary lessons that true success cannot be built on deception, that integrity matters more than titles, and that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you truly need. Sarah and I did eventually get that vacation home, a small cabin by a lake, where Emma, now in college, joins us during her breaks. We spend evenings on the deck, watching the sunset reflect on the water. In those quiet moments, I find myself grateful for the path that led me here, even the painful parts. Last month, Thomas, Aisha, and Marcus joined our family for a weekend at the cabin. As we sat around the fire pit sharing stories and laughter, I realized that Jackson's betrayal had given me an unexpected gift. It had shown me the difference between colleagues and true partners, between a job and a calling. The business world often glorifies cutthroat competition and individual achievement at any cost. Jackson embodied that philosophy, and for a time it seemed to serve him well. But what I have built since then, a company founded on collaboration and mutual success, has proven more sustainable and ultimately more satisfying. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, know that it does not define you. The actions of others reflect their character, not your worth. The path forward may not be clear immediately, but there is power in reclaiming your narrative, in building something new from the ashes of what was lost. Success is not measured by titles or corner offices. It is measured by the integrity with which you conduct yourself, by the relationships you build, and by your ability to sleep soundly at night, knowing you have remained true to your values. I lost a friend and a promotion because of betrayal, but I gained a company, a mission, and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become the foundation for our greatest achievements, not despite the pain, but because of how it transforms us. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led you to something better? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons from unexpected places. Remember, your darkest moments may be preparing you for your greatest light. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay true to yourself. It is the surest path to lasting success.